Welcome to a new vlog series. So this is documenting our trip to North America in July. So we went to Canada and America to multiple different locations, obviously for theatre. And the first stop we went to was Montreal. So we had a little bit of time in Montreal, like about 4 hours. So rather than spend it at the airport, we decided to go downtown and see what was happening, as this was our first time in Canada. And we were both really intrigued what French Canadian speaking parts of the country were like. And what we did not realise at all was that we were there during the big festivals. Obviously we had to go and find the theatres, and we were both very fascinated by this production of Waitress that was coming to Montreal, which is in French. So it could be because obviously French Canada, so it was really cool to explore all the different things. And we found PFK, which is the French version of KFC. But is it PFK in France? Anyhow, we were headed to Poutineville, which, because Mickey had never tried poutine before, and we felt like we had to have poutine in Canada. So we went there, and then we explored some more to see all the different architecture, which I found incredible. I would really love to actually go back to Montreal because it seemed so cool. And then we headed back to the airport, we found cornets, and then we got some ruffles before we got on a plane to Halifax. It's day 2 of our North American theatre trip journey, and the first stop was Tim Hortons, the amazing Canadian coffee shop, which is in the UK too, and I love it. So we headed to our plane to Gander. This was the big reason for our trip, was to go to Gander, to experience Gander, and to watch the non-replica production of Come From Away that has been running this summer in Gander itself. Here was our first sight of Gander as we were landing. I was a bit nervous with the propeller plane, because I'd never been in such a small plane, but it was a great journey. It was a really calm, easy flight, and this is what greeted us when we arrived. You are here at the start of the moment, Gander, welcome to the Rock. I was so emotional just by seeing that, and then we headed into the international terminal to see the place where obviously the show happens and the real true events happened. And there's this whole section, this exhibition, which includes elements including the piece of the World Trade Center steel, but also these props from the show, the set model from the show, moments of the show, documentation of the journey that it took, what happened in Gander. And I honestly, if you're going to go to Gander, recommend spending at least an hour in this area and just fully take it all in, and to do what Mickey's doing here, which is to sign the book. So if you go to Gander, you'll be able to find our little note in the book upstairs. And yeah, it was just so emotional. And if you look at this tapestry artwork here, that can kind of be seen in Annette's waistcoat in the show. And there was this piano that was themed to Come From Away, and you can see all the little drawings there linked to the show. And then we passed the Tim Hortons that's in the start and the end of the show. The Tim Hortons, the one where they all greet Janice. And then we went, and there's markings everywhere across the town where you can find the different key moments from Come From Away, including the giant refrigerator, which I was overwhelmed when we found the Legion, and they're all so close to one another, so close. And we saw another piece of the steel that was in front of the hall, and then I went and got an iced root beer, because I'd never had an A&W root beer before, and I was very intrigued by the concept of a frozen root beer. And then we headed off to explore more of Gander. So after a day exploring Gander, we headed to the Gander Arts and Culture Centre to see the non-replica production of Come From Away, which we travelled all this way to Canada for. It was everything and more than I could have expected, and it was literally right in front of the world's largest refrigerator, so you couldn't be more in the centre of Gander. As you can see, here is all the merchandise. I'm just going to quickly say, the craziest thing of that performance was not just to be in an audience filled with people from Gander, but also to be in a room where people who inspired the characters were also there. It was a magical experience that I will never forget. And look, they even had a pinboard where people had put their pins in, and we'd added ours from the UK. And this is what the non-replica production of Come From Away looked like, which I love. So it was our final day in Newfoundland, so the first thing we did was head to the Dover Vault. We first went into the Interpretation Centre to see their Come From Away section, which included Diane's Broadway costume, photos from the show, with including the real Nick and Diane, a slice of one of the trees that was in the original Broadway production, and then we headed up to the iconic Dover Vault itself. In the musical Come From Away, this is where Nick and Diane sing Stop the World, and honestly, look at this view. We were really fortunate that the weather was so nice on this day, but it truly just felt like a moment where everything stopped and it was just so beautiful and serene. And me and Mickey got photos together to have our little Stop the World moment. It was just a beautiful one of our final things to do. And then we headed to the Riverfront Peace Park to see the largest piece of steel. And we were told this is where a lot of the Come From Aways went to find some peace in those days that they were in Newfoundland. And then we went and got some food, some iconic Gander food, which was so tasty. And then we headed for a plane to Toronto. This was a little break that we'd planned, and I was so glad we went there. But just look how cool this view is. There's the CN Tower. We had this evening just to kind of explore and get used to Toronto. And this was our view from our hotel, which was so relaxing. And I think after so many planes, I was so happy to be in a very comfortable bedroom. And we saw this. This is the Tim Hortons musical that was on in Toronto. And then we went and got some pizza from a restaurant that was right by the hotel. And then we went to explore and find where all the theatres were. And if you can see, Come From Away is on its way to Toronto. I think it's just started in Ottawa. We found Ryan Reynolds and Rachel McAdams as marks on the Toronto Hall of Fame, Walk of Fame, or the Hall of Fame, and then we went to find the theatre where Wicked is, which we were seeing the next day. And if you can see, we noticed that they just got to the point of for good. Keep following the series for more. Day 4 of the North American theatre trip was a full day in Toronto. So we started with breakfast in the Hilton Toronto, and then we headed down to see more of the big tourist attractions. So we saw the Rogers Centre and the aquarium, and we walked through this really cool redevelopment of their train station, which I loved. We went to the harbour, which was really picturesque, and we definitely might have gone back later. You'll see in a bit. Then we went to the Princess of Wales Theatre for the main reason why we're in Toronto, which was to see the matinee of this little musical called Wicked, mainly to see Western star Lauren Samuels as Elphaba. The moment she was announced in the role, we needed to plan a trip, and we thought, why not see it in Toronto to take off another country of seeing Wicked. First we did the merch. The new range of merch, incredible. The anniversary merch and the Pride merch were a big yes. Yes, we bought more merch. Yes, that was probably most of the merch we bought from this trip, including the pins, and we didn't buy any, but cool that they've got friendship bracelets. It feels fitting for this show. The obvious playbill shot, which is more of a programme, not official playbill, but so much fun. And then this is the look of the theatre. Honestly, the Princess of Wales might be one of the most beautiful theatres I've been in the past couple of years. Here is the cast for the bows at the curtain call. We saw Alex as Bok, which was amazing after seeing them in Kimberly Kimbo on Broadway. And then the Queen. Like, the second Amy Garcia walked on the stage, I literally thought, that is Mama Bear from the Shrek the Musical Pro Shot. And she was a phenomenal Madame Marble. The comedy, just everything, perfection. And here are the two leads. It was fab. Lauren was everything that I would have hoped for. Just funny choices, vocals for days. And Austin had such a great take on Glinda, and they had such great chemistry as a pair. I love seeing this show in different countries and with different accents, and to see just how different it is. I mean, this production is like the UK tour, so you have slight differences from the Western and Broadway productions as it needs a tour, so you don't have the traps, etc. But it still is just wicked and just so much fun, and I recommend seeing this tour if it's coming anywhere near you. And then, what did we do after that? Well, I can say that we went, and you're not ready for this, we went to find Celine Dion's Mark of Fame. And then we saw her Come From Away bus that was going past, which, I mean, with this journey of seeing everything come from away, we were very happy. And then we went to see the rest of the theatres in Toronto to see what was on, have a look at them, and hopefully maybe we'll get to come back and see shows in different theatres. And then we went for some shopping and to see the big, tourist areas, because it would feel weird if we didn't. followed by a trip back to the harbour for drinks. And then we went up the CN Tower. We have been taking off a lot of these skyscraper viewing platforms, which I can't believe I've done because I'm not a big height person. But it felt fitting. It was perfect to do at the end of the day and to see the sun setting. And it felt a bit magical, and it felt great to see the rest of Toronto because we only did like that small area of the city. And it felt like the perfect way to end a full day in Toronto, followed by a trip to the merch store. Day 5 of our North American theatre trip, we said goodbye to Canada and Toronto and hello to America and New York. Yes, this was the start of our most recent Broadway trip. So we didn't actually have that much planned for this trip, so we first headed to our friend Ashley's in Brooklyn to drop off our stuff, and then we headed back into the city to go and explore and to see what the new marquees were on Broadway. So first we went to Times Square, saw the iconic sights, took our photos, etc. Just got into that New York feeling, and it felt really nice because we've been there so often now that it just kind of felt like returning to a second home, which was very nice. And here is the look of the street. There's Hell's Kitchen, and there is the marquee for Gypsy, if you can see in the corner of the Majestic, which was new for us. And then we obviously headed to Schmackery's, our favourite cookie place in New York, to try out their new flavours, because we haven't been there in the summer, so we didn't see what they do there. I always get one of the little guides to see what the different types of cookies are. Schmacker is the official cookie of Broadway, but obviously I went for my usual, my corn cookie, my fave. And then we met up with Ashley and headed to Gale's Broadway Rose, which fully recommend if you're planning your first trip to New York. It is amazing food, most of it's gluten-free, and it is the place where all the performers are singers, and the performances are incredible, like full Broadway voices. And then to end our trip, we headed to see Six. We got very last minute tickets to see Six with Ashley, and this cast are incredible. I'm sorry, but Jasmine's Heart of Stone is out of this world. Need a single of it. Yes. So day 6, we spent a lot of it working, but then we headed into Chelsea Market to go and get dinner ahead of our evening show, and I love Chelsea Market. It's a great place to go and get food. And my choice for the evening? Takumi Taco. I went and got some of their corn tacos, which were amazing and a great little bite to eat. And then we did one of my favourite things to do in New York, which is to walk the High Line. So we walked up into Midtown from downtown, and as you can see, you get some of the best views of New York. I fully recommend walking the High Line. Basically, it was a disused railway line that then got transformed into a sky park, and you get loads of artwork and statues and exhibitions as you walk down there, but also a great amount of greenery and a perfect look of the skyline. And then you come out right by the Shed. So the Shed is where we saw Here We Are, the Sondheim musical, the final Sondheim musical, and as you can also see, one of the famous landmarks of New York. And then we headed to 42nd Street to head to Stage 42 to see Dungeons & Dragons for 20-Sided Tavern, which we'd been invited to see. Mickey's a big fan of Dungeons & Dragons, and I don't actually know that much about it, but this felt like the perfect introduction to that world, and I don't think you need to be a fan of the games to be able to appreciate this show. That's the list of signature drinks. And here's a look at the merch. There was so much merch. I think if you're a Dungeons & Dragons fan, you'll be buying a lot of it. But this is a really interactive show where you help decide who all the players are going to play, and then you use your phone during the show, and you can film during the show as you team up with one of the members and you decide what happens. It's kind of you choose your own adventure. Then after the show, me and Mickey were lucky to be invited to come on the stage. Mickey got to throw the die and rolled a natural 20, and then we went to one of my favourite things to do, which is to go and get a Reese's Stuff Your Cup, which I eat over a number of days, but it's fair. Day 7 of a North American theatre trip started bright and early as we headed to the Music Box Theatre on Broadway to queue for rush tickets to see Suffs the musical, and we were that early, but we were the first in line. So as we queued, me and Mickey took our turns going to get breakfast. I obviously went and got my favourite coffee, Dunkin' Donuts, and their egg bites, which are my all-time faves. And then we got our tickets to see the show. Yay! So we'll show you at the end of what we went to see. But then we headed to Rockefeller Plaza to go and get our lunch. I really like Rockefeller Plaza, like going down where all the food is. We always go to Black Sea Bagels. That's like my go-to. I think we got a bagels there on this moment, but I'm not 100%. But we also just really like that swimming summer display, which was very cool. And then we headed to the Central Park Zoo. We'd both never been before, and we had the time free to go there, and we wanted to see kind of some more of the tourist elements that we haven't done on any of our previous trips. And it was good to know that the Central Park Zoo does a lot towards conservation, so we knew that going there was going to help support looking after animals, which is what we really care about. And then after exploring the Central Park Zoo and getting away from kind of the big city, we went and found loads of gluten-free snacks, including my favourites, which was a big yay. And then we saw turtles swimming in Central Park, which is fun. And then we headed to see Suffs. I love Suffs so much. It's probably one of my favourite shows of the past season. There's a reason why I got the Tony Award for the book and score, because Shona Taub's writing is incredible and this cast are incredible, and I fully recommend going to see the show, and I'm so glad we got to see it again. If you're looking to book tickets to see a Broadway show on this trip, this is one that I highly, highly, highly recommend. I just love it so much. And after that was the end of our show. And then, maybe we'll go and see this show on this trip. Day 8 of our North American theatre trip was a 2-show day starting at the Perlman Performing Arts Centre to see the show that really was the reason we added New York to this trip. And it was to see Cats the Jellicle Ball, aka Ballroom Cats. If you didn't know, my beautiful stagey fiancé, Mickey J. Theatre, is a major Cats fan. So this was a show he was desperate to see. And luckily this trip panned out with when it was on. So we headed into the theatre, which is a brand new theatre space which has recently opened and kind of reminds us of the Bridge in London, if you know that theatre. It was really cool, the setup. It was had this cool kind of immersive modern vibe to it, and the show, 10 out of 10, incredible. Honestly, I'm desperate kind of to see it again. So after that, we headed to Holdfast, which is one of our go-to spots in Midtown to get our food in between shows. This is a really cool spot where a lot of stage people go, and very much recommend. And then we headed across the theatre. We went and did some shopping at One Schubert Alley, which is like the place if you want to go and get theatre merch and you're not going to see a show. They have all the pins for all the shows, exclusive merch, which we've bought before, and honestly, a big recommendation. And you saw that Shears University sweatshirt then? That's where I got it from. Then we headed to go and see our beautiful friend Pam Reif's photography, which is on the front of the Lena Horne Theatre, there we go, on Broadway. And then we headed to our show for the evening, which was Hadestown. We'd been invited to come and see the new cast of Hadestown on Broadway, and I was so excited to see it, especially because all of our friends have become major fans of Jordan as Orpheus, and we wanted to understand what the big deal was. And my gosh, his vocals, his performance, everything about what he does as Orpheus, phenomenal. Yola's voice, gorgeous. Maya's an incredible Eurydice, and the chemistry between her and Jordan is just one of my favourite pairings of an Orpheus and a Eurydice. And I mean, Philip Boykin is Philip Boykin. He's incredible. Just everything about this, 10 out of 10. But as you probably know already, I adore Hadestown. It's one of my favourite shows. So I will kind of always be happy to see this show again and again and again. There's only one part left of this vlog, so keep an eye out for the final day. So day 9 was our final day of the North American theatre trip, and we started by heading to Bryant Park for Broadway in Bryant Park. Now, I'd been a big fan of this, watching clips over the years, and I didn't think we'd ever be in New York when it was on, so that was really cool. So it's essentially a bit like West End Live, where Broadway shows come to the stage and they perform a few numbers for the public for free. And it happens over summer, over 4 consecutive weeks, where once a week 4 or 5 shows joined together to sing a few numbers. So the day we were there, it was The Wiz, Back to the Future, Hell's Kitchen, Water for Elephants and The Who's Tommy. And the vocals, the performances, and it was so cool also to see understudies and standbys on the stage. And it was a great way to see a couple of the shows that I wasn't going to get to see for this trip, which was really nice. And then we headed to Emmy Squared Pizza to go and get our favourite pizzas. That was the first place we ever went to when we went to New York City for food. So it was really nice that we always kind of go back there for memories. And then we got dessert from Juniors, which was the best. And then we headed to our final show of the trip, which was The Notebook. We love this show so much, and it was really nice to see it again. And we had the whole cast on. Joy Woods with My Days. That song is epic, and she is epic. And we both had a little bit of a tear, a little bit of a cry during it. Partly because it was the end of our trip, but also just the show so emotional. So we were there having a little tear together. And I do just love the score of this show. And the book actually in particular is really strong in this show. But honestly, a perfect way to end a trip, and I'm so glad that we went back to see this beautiful show.